Hello everyone and welcome back to our video. Today we continue our journey of rescue filled with touching stories and the warmth of humanity every act of. Kindness from you helps us spread these values to even more people. Let's begin. Our first story is about a tiny ground squirrel discovered by locals who noticed signs of injury and a skin infection. They watched over it carefully, working together to catch the little one. Swiftly, they disinfected its wounds and removed a large Botfly Maggot from its neck, a parasite that had left a gaping hole in the squirrel's skin. With medical care and a lot of love, something beautiful happened. They became friends with this surprisingly friendly squirrel. Truly heartwarming, isn't it? Our next story features another little squirrel suffering from swollen lumps all over its back and neck. It must have been unbearably itchy as the poor thing approached humans, seemingly asking for help. Thankfully, it chose the right person. Its unexpected rescuer decided to take it to a veterinarian where the botfly larvae were carefully removed. Imagining the pain this tiny creature endured is heartbreaking, but now it feels so much better and is ready to start a new life in good health. If this touching story warmed your heart, don't forget to leave a comment, like, and subscribe to support our channel. How about this fancy dining set for squirrels? Isn't it delightful? Such a fun and creative idea, don't you think? This next rescue story has a heartwarming ending. A poor baby rabbit was found stuck in a damp pile of dirt. But luckily, a kind-hearted person discovered it just in time. What he did for the little rabbit was more than just a rescue. The final moments will truly surprise and move you. Trust me, you want to watch this. Today's journey ends with an incredibly moving story of a helpless dog clinging to life. Its small body was covered in painful festering sores, a heartbreaking sight that spoke of unimaginable suffering for days. The rescue team watched and waited carefully, planning the moment to intervene. When they finally caught the little dog, its eyes told a story of both pain and desperate hope. Each wound was a reminder of the torment it had endured, and yet through the kindness and care it received, this fragile life found watching. And may your days be filled with happiness and peace. Each day may seem ordinary to us, but for so many innocent, helpless creatures, it could be a battle for survival. A day filled with pain, fear, and longing for compassion. Let us remind ourselves that our hearts were made to feel, to care, and to act. Do you know why you're watching this video? It's not by chance. You and I, those who find themselves moved by these stories, have been chosen for a purpose: to protect, to heal, and to be the voice for these small, vulnerable lives. Perhaps it's a calling, a quiet whisper reminding you of our shared responsibility to make this world a kinder place. What do you think? Let us embrace this mission, open our hearts, and give these creatures the love and care they so desperately need. For in doing so, we honor the deeper meaning of humanity and the divine purpose we were entrusted with. The whispering woods of Pine Hollow had always held secrets stretching for miles. They were a sanctuary for wildlife, a haven for humans who sought solace, and an untamed labyrinth for the curious. It was here, beneath the canopy of ancient oaks and swaying pines, that a small gray squirrel named Thistle made her home. She was a spirited creature, darting through the underbrush with the kind of freedom only the wild could provide. Yet she carried within her a growing terror, a thing unseen, a thing that clung to her very life force. Thistle had always been the bravest of her brood. When the others would scurry at the sight of shadows, she would leap boldly into the unknown. But as summer turned to fall, something changed. She felt a persistent itch near her neck. At first, she ignored it, too busy gathering acorns and weaving through the dense underbrush. But the itch turned into a dull ache, and the ache became a throbbing pain. Unbeknownst to her, the woods carried more than whispers that season. A parasitic botfly had laid its eggs near her den, and one of those eggs had found its way beneath her fur. Embedding itself deep within her neck, the larva grew, feeding off her, silent and unseen, but soon it would make its presence known.
Thistle's demeanor began to shift. She no longer dashed from branch to branch with her usual vigor. Her leaps became shorter, her movements hesitant. Her fur, once sleek and shiny, started to look unkempt. The other squirrels noticed, but they kept their distance. In the wild, weakness was a dangerous thing to acknowledge.
Deep in the heart of the woods lived an elderly man named Ezra, a recluse, who had chosen the solitude of Pine Hollow over the chaos of the outside world. Ezra was a retired wildlife rehabilitator, a man whose hands bore the marks of countless rescues and recoveries. He had a soft spot for squirrels, often leaving out bits of bread and fruit for them. Thistle had been one of his frequent visitors, her boldness often leading her to snatch food right from his hand. Ezra noticed the change in Thistle immediately one afternoon as he sat on his porch whittling a piece of wood. He saw her approach. Her steps were labored, her tiny frame trembling, and then he saw a swollen, pulsating lump on her neck. Alarmed, Ezra sat down, his carving knife, and knelt to get a closer look. The sight sent a shiver down his spine. "Oh, little one," he muttered, his voice tinged with both sorrow and determination. "What's happened to you?" Ezra's weathered hands gently scooped up Thistle, who offered little resistance. He carried her inside his cabin, a cozy space cluttered with books, jars of herbs, and various tools of his old trade. Placing her on a soft towel, he examined the lump more closely. It was unlike anything he had seen before. The skin around the swelling was stretched taut, and a small hole at its center oozed a clear fluid. Ezra's mind raced. He retrieved an old medical guide from his bookshelf and flipped through its pages. The illustrations and descriptions confirmed his suspicions. A botfly larva. It was a parasite that burrowed into the flesh of its host, feeding and growing until it was ready to emerge. The thought of it made Ezra's skin crawl, but his resolve to help Thistle hardened. "We'll get it out," he promised her, his voice steady despite the unease in his heart. "But it's going to take some work." The first step was to ensure Thistle's comfort and safety. Ezra prepared a small enclosure, lining it with soft cloth and placing it near the fireplace. To keep her warm, he crushed some acorns and mixed them with a bit of honey to entice her to eat, though she only nibbled at it. Her energy was waning, and time was of the essence. Ezra gathered his tools, tweezers, antiseptic, a magnifying glass, and a small syringe filled with warm saline solution. He also brewed a strong tea made from chamomile and valerian root, hoping it would calm both his nerves and Thistle's. As night fell, the cabin was bathed in the warm glow of a lantern, and the woods outside seemed to hold their breath. With Thistle immobilized in a gentle wrap, Ezra began the delicate process. He carefully irrigated the wound with the saline solution, trying to flush out any debris. The larva's body became more visible, its segmented form writhing just beneath the surface. The sight was both fascinating and horrifying. Ezra's hands were steady as he used the tweezers to grasp the larva, but as he applied gentle pressure, Thistle let out a sharp squeak, and her tiny body jerked. Ezra immediately stopped, his heart pounding. He whispered soothing words to her, stroking her head until she calmed down. "We'll try again tomorrow," he said, though doubt gnawed at him. Could he really do this without harming her? That night, Ezra's sleep was plagued by nightmares. In his dreams, the larva grew to monstrous proportions, breaking free from Thistle's body and turning its many-eyed gaze on him. The woods transformed into a writhing mass of parasites, their grotesque forms consuming everything in their path. He awoke drenched in sweat, the cabin's shadows feeling more oppressive than usual.